Hey, Steven, do you know anything about watermelons?
Some of them are seedless.
Yeah, but that puts an end to actual gardening. And since we're going to segue to gardening, and the guy that wears the watermelon shirt everywhere he goes,
Munir Haque,
Munir Haque, yeah, of Curate.
right.
What's Curate all about?
Curate is about connecting within the security and IT space, helping with managed services as well as security and overall compliance when you're a dispensary as well as a cultivation facility. Curate can help with the security and IT within your business. Also, they're just really well connected. So if you need something or if you're looking to learn more, Curate's a great place to start.
Welcome, everybody. Today, you are going to hear about the do's and don'ts of starting a cannabis in Minnesota, and you get to hear from the people who've actually done it. So, starting here on the right, we have Jonathan Hunt of Leech Lake Cannabis, and then we have Jacob Affeldt, Frostbite Dispensary. We have Munir Haque, Curate, and then finally, last but not least, Brytany Melville of Forte Ops. I think we all know the Minnesota adult use rollout has been pretty rocky. So, what's the biggest piece of advice you have for new operators?
I'll go. New operators, can you guys hear me? Yes, okay. Vet who you're dealing with. That would be my number one understanding, is understand thoroughly who you are dealing with. There's a lot of people in the industry that are consultants. Can you hear that? No? Talk louder? Better? There's a lot of consultants in the industry that they went to work for a big MSO or they're doing whatever they were doing somewhere else, and they can give you a beautiful line of shit. And they'll sell you a dream that will never come true. So verify who you're dealing with, understand their background, call and check, really dig into everybody you're dealing with would be my first piece of advice. Everything else from there will kind of sort itself out.
Yeah, and I'd say on that same note, like ask for references, ask for people they've worked with, ask for licenses if you're getting product from people. Don't just get excited because it's your first purchase, it's your first product of that category, or it's a good price point. There's a lot of people in the industry that you need to be careful around, and have patience in that regard, because rushing into things is how you get burnt. So
Just to add on that, I wouldn't shy away from going to other markets and asking for feedback and information and struggles and learnings. For example, California is a great one. I'm from Canada. We've been federally legal for 8 years. I tour operators all the time and bring them around to dispensaries, cultivation facilities, and every time we've done that, it's like a night and day change in their business plan and insight, and completely helps shape the next couple of years of their entire planning and forecasting, because you get like 8 years of business experience from these operators that had to go through the struggles of not having any benchmarks in their market. So take the time, if you have the time and flexibility to visit other markets and ask questions, get in there, because there's a lot of operators that are willing to share information.
To echo what Jonathan and everyone else has been saying, like vetting your vendors is one of the most crucial points that, I can't harp on enough. And, these folks on stage, like I went to go visit Frostbite yesterday, and another dispensary came to thank Jacob. And Jacob and I were chatting because he helped guide them, because again, he's been through this. And it's also really warm to see someone who has been through this and is not looking at others as competitors and is trying to help the state. So, it was really beautiful to see. And I got to witness Jacob just talking about all the elements that you need and the things involved. And he's not telling you to use like my services or someone else's service or whatnot. He's guiding you on what it is you need. So vetting your vendors and talking to folks that have done this, and we'll get into a lot of that today.
All right. One more open-ended question. So, what's the largest misconception the public still has about the legal cannabis industry in Minnesota?
That it's unique. There's nothing unique about it. There's nothing special about it. It's not going to be discovered here. It's already been discovered. It's already been practiced. It's already had its failures. Remember that this has happened in 28 states for nearly 20 years. This is my 20th year in the medical cannabis space. So you're not reinventing the wheel. You're not cutting new paths. So rely on existing information to save yourself a lot of dollars.
I would say that's a really good point as well. When my wife and I were working to build out our pro forma, our business plan, and really understand what we needed for our business, it wasn't blindly. There's tons of information out there from the people that came before us on customer count, expected sales, prices, everything to really build those things so you're not just guessing, right? Because guessing is how you get yourself into trouble in compliance form, as well as potentially bankrupting yourself because you don't know what to expect. So that's great advice.
So in my world, in the digital space, there's a million different ways to launch a website, build a platform, take online payments. But, software as a service is tough. POS software in general, right? There's a lot of different ones out there, especially in the cannabis space. I don't know the right one. If you ask a lot of different dispensary owners, there probably isn't a right one. It's just what path do you want to go to that leads it down? What path have we gone down?
Are you referring to Dutchy, the modern cannabis commerce point of sale system?
Newly integrated AI solutions?
I mean, they have so many different ways that they can serve cannabis businesses, brands, wholesalers, etc. They're not just point of sale technology anymore.
Right.
Dutchy's been a great partner for us. They can definitely help you. They're in more stores in America than any other point of sale company. So they must be doing something.
I hope so. And if you're going to look up our boy, look up Gus.
Yeah, Gus Savastos with Dutchy, based out of Ohio. Served the Midwest market well. He's here often. He's been on the show before. We love working with Gus. We love working with the whole team at Dutchy. Check them out and let them know Canna Connect sent you. We'll include the link in the end of the description.
All right, now we're going to focus on our cannabis retailer, Jacob, with a few questions. All right, so I'm personally aware of what it took to get your doors open, but can you walk us through what it actually took to get your doors open? Timeline, cost, sorpresas, all those fun things.
Yeah, that's a large question. So my wife and I worked on this for years prior to any application process, anything like that. Tons of sleepless nights of doing research on other markets, on going to other markets. We went to California and toured tons of dispensaries, had lots of conversations. We redid our business plan 100 times. We redid our layout of our facility more times than I can count. But the effort beyond that is there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it as well. Family sacrifice, time sacrifice, and not just monetarily, right? My wife has taken a huge burden to be able to do that, and you have to think about that. Like, how are you going to make your home whole before you can do all of this? I mean, monetarily, I think we did it more affordably than a lot of places. You don't need to spend $1 million to build out a retail space because it will take you forever to crawl out from under that in terms of debt. And then, I mean, everything else, the compliance, all of it, lean on people that are experienced in this space, that have an understanding of it and have done it before. That's what we did. And yeah.
Great answer. All right. How are you competing with the legacy market on price and product selection?
Competing with the legacy market. So on price, I'll be honest, the legacy market is beating us on price right now. We're fairly new in this state, and I am completely aware of what everyone's going to their neighborhood plug and getting stuff for. In terms of quality and difference of product, we're very fortunate at our store. We're very, very well stocked. So I feel confident in that in comparison. But that will change. Prices will come down over time. This is an immature market in comparison to a lot of places in the country.
All right. What does your customer base look like? Is it what you expected?
Our customer base is actually exactly what we projected. We spent a lot of time figuring out the demographic of our city, the population size, the type of customers that come into our store and make purchases. And that's something that I'd encourage anyone that wants to open a storefront to do. Understand not just what you think it is, but look at your city's demographic, look at your population, and understand who you're going to be selling to. Because even though you have a vision in your head of who you might be selling to, that where you're moving into for your physical location could completely dictate something differently for you.
It's true. All right. I think a lot of people's favorite subject. How are you navigating the banking and payment processing challenges that most retailers face?
Navigating banking has actually been pretty easy. We have a great partner that we work with here. They're here today if you want to chat with them. There's a lot of other banking partners here. So that we really haven't had an issue with. Payment processing in cannabis is a nightmare. I don't know how else to say that, but there's downtime. Often you need to be able to adapt and kind of switch between potential different providers after you vet them. But obviously, still in cannabis, cash is definitely king. So,
How is your relationship with the Office of Cannabis Management so far?
personally, great. The Office of Cannabis Management has been a partner, an ally in this. We were fortunate; we had the first state sale of flower. And the OCM has been in multiple times. They've used our facility as an example of good for their inspectors and trained some of their inspectors at our location. And I mean, I've helped fill in on different panels to try to help out in that regard. If you view them as an ally rather than an adversary, your life will be a lot easier in this journey. So.
Awesome. Thank you for all of that, Jacob. Now we're going to move on to our cultivator, Jonathan.
So there's a lot of conversations that happen in and around the cannabis space, both here on the Canna Connect Show and in the Cannaverse. But there's really one person that comes to mind for me who's there all the time, and that's Corey Lake.
He's in the middle of it. World Insurance is his world now. And Corey Lake has made Minnesota cannabis his world, and it's starting to pay dividends. He's being seen as a thought leader and an advocate for the greater cannabis industry. He understands it. He takes a measured approach. He's never too up, too down. And he's fantastic to work with. We work with Corey Lake, World Insurance, and CannaSure, and we recommend you reach out to them if you have any insurance needs.
Yeah, look up Corey Lake. If you haven't met him yet, he's your guy.
All right. From seed to shelf, what does your compliance burden actually look like?
It looks like from seed to shelf, about 10 hours of one person's day, every single day, to manage and monitor every single movement of every part of the plant. So you're managing it from the seed all the way through your manufacturing into your harvest. And then once it leaves your harvest and it goes into your manufacturing or your processing, and it gets broken down into 50 different pieces, and you got to track that all the way through, all the way down to a single joint that you can then recall back if you got a compliance issue, is a massive amount. So that department is a huge lift. We usually, on a big facility, we'll have 4 to 8 people that manage that process all day long.
Wow. All right. How are you managing the tension between scale and quality in a market that's still finding its pricing floor?
It's understanding what actually works versus what you wish would work. Don't push rope uphill. So we've refined our processes down basically to the most simple exercise of any operation. When you're trying to teach this to people repeatedly, the industry has like almost 100% turnover every 9 months. Your systems and processes really need to be tight. You need to be able to hand something off so that it can be easily understood and easily repeatable. This industry has no repetition in it whatsoever, regardless of what people think. If you're not doing all parts of it, you're doing none of it. There's no room for any single piece to not work, because it's a catastrophic domino effect of any part of it, specifically cultivation. Your lights go out, your environment changes, your air doesn't move, somebody doesn't water. Like, you have to eliminate the ability for people to destroy what you've built. You know, at $450 a square foot, you know, a year of execution to get it built, you know, launch 100 people in that process. You know, if you get shut down for 6 months, you know, that's 2 years worth of revenues and a restart that people can't handle. So you got to be prepared for the worst. You got to be prepared for regulation, to have no idea what they're talking about, and you have all responsibility to make sure it works. It's difficult. The cultivation is difficult. Again, please watch who you bring in. You know, your basement grower has no ability to handle anything that's larger than a basement. Your outdoor farmer does not know how to grow indoors. Your indoor farmer does not know how to grow outdoors. Like, these are learned skills. So, you know, make sure you're cautious with who you bring in.
Good points. What's the hardest part of operating a licensed grow in Minnesota? Specifically, climate, regulation, or something else?
Regulation. For us, it's regulation. For everybody else, it's going to be individual. For us, regulation is it. All of our processes are refined. So the regulators are not refined. The regulators are the one loose piece in our operation that we have no control of, and we have no understanding of what they understand. So that's the most difficult.
All right. Are you seeing any issues with supply, and how should we be planning for it?
Yeah, there's a huge issue with supply. There's a huge issue with even supply that's grown locally outside of the black market. People don't understand what they're doing yet. The quality of the product isn't there. Everything is going through rad source or remediation. People are pushing out product that in the future will not be acceptable currently. So that's what I see is people jeopardizing their long-term value to the industry for short-term grab. I've been doing it for 20 years commercially, not on the black market, all in regulated markets. I don't have a lot of patience for that any longer. It's been 10 states, and it's old. Caution yourself to how you execute and how you go out to the public. The public is your ultimate long-term success story. Without them, you have nothing.
Solid point. All right. Let's finish it up with some genetics. So, how do you source genetics and stay ahead on strain selection while staying compliant?
Compliance, I can't answer that part, but I can answer on the genetics. We're not as fickle as the industry. The industry moves really, really fast. If you really understand the plant genetics, you can go look at Phylos's universal map. Everything's within percentages of each other, so it's emotional. People are going based on who's smoking what, when, where, and how cool it looks. We definitely hold a much more solid, consistent methodology. We try to keep a lineage going that's pretty consistent for our customer long term. Call it Coca-Cola. I don't know what else you want to call it. I would rather not sell disposable pens, but the market demands it. So you have to work with what works with the public.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Now we're going to move on to Brytany from Forte. All right, first question. What areas would you say are often overlooked for new operators?
There's a couple. I definitely would echo our first suggestion of asking, local other businesses and other operators for just feedback and suggestions and what they've learned. Definitely there. And then I think really prioritizing time at the beginning to hire the right people. We all know like retail turnover is high. Dispensary retail turnover is the highest I've seen in my entire like 16 years in retail. So budgeting that in for training and just turnover cost, I think is often overlooked at the beginning. And then probably the importance of having a really good marketing plan. Clearly, at the beginning of a new market, it is challenging to really know and pre-plan for marketing initiatives. However, I am going to get into that a little bit further in the next couple questions, but I definitely say at the start that is overlooked. And the final thing I would say is when building out your budget for open, the last couple final checks often get, put to the side because more than often clients will go over budget with their operating costs to open. So then what happens is things get cut off at the end. Training might get cut off, or any, staff incentive programming might get cut off, or like your training days of 3 days might go down to half a day. I really think front loading your time with your people at the very beginning to make sure that they're, well trained on compliance, but also how to sell cannabis and your internal processes is super important at the beginning, and a lot of times overlooked, I would say.
Awesome. All right. What tips would you suggest for new operators who are building their tech stack across retail, cultivation, and wholesale?
It's probably one of the most challenging processes at the very beginning because, as you can see while you walk through the conference hall, you are inundated with a ton of people trying to sell you everything, and it is overwhelming. So what I do suggest is do a couple demos, take notes, get the conversation recorded, take some time, come back and do a couple demos again in a couple months once you have an idea of actually what questions you're going to ask. So, for example, for your point of sale, your e-commerce, or any marketing solution, when you sit through a couple demos, they're all going to blend into each other and really feel the same. So that's why I always suggest to new operators to take some time, come back and revisit with your account associate to ask those questions that are really going to be important to scaling your businesses, because a lot of the different tech providers have different strengths. And once you do onboard that solution, actually operating it is different than the demo. So for example, some of the point of sale companies will have a lot of different integrations, and those integrations have their specific nuances with what works and what doesn't work. So really spending the time to optimize your tech stack and asking other people for their feedback, what they like about it, what they don't like it about it is really important. And, to be honest, there's no perfect solution in any part of this business. We're still at such early stages here. So there are going to be, negative aspects to any type of provider or solution that you use, but it's really figuring out what's important to you and your business and taking the time to select your partners, because it is a little bit of a challenge to transition off of that once you're already operational.
Great answer. All right, let's get back to our marketing plan. So how important is developing a marketing plan?
Great question. Again, in a new market, it is a little bit challenging when you don't have supply, because obviously you need product in order to market. However, what I do find is a lot of times people are a little bit confused as to what marketing actually is. There's so many different parts of marketing. There's your online marketing, your digital marketing, there's trade marketing, there's social media marketing, there's your in-store visual marketing. So really kind of pre-planning out by season is a good idea. And then taking a look at all of the holidays month over month. We all know what's coming up in July, I hope, as an important cannabis holiday. No? 7/10. Oil. So when you are taking a look at your marketing calendar and your community manager maybe in the store, whoever's in charge of that, and pre-planning at least 4 to 8 weeks in advance, you're looking at all those types of different holidays and long weekends to make sure that you have an omni-channel consistent presence so that your online e-commerce menu maybe has the sale that's going on, your TV menus maybe have the same sale that's going on, your social media is also representing that, and your team is aware of what is going on so they can clearly and competently sell that. So having a marketing plan at least a couple weeks in advance really helps on the operational side, so your team just isn't running around like chickens with their heads cut off because as they timed in, they found out, oh, all the concentrates are on sale today and we're running an incentive for the most amount of sold gets this bonus gift card. So it really helps on the employee morale side when you have this pre-planned and executed in an organized way.
Great points. All right, last question. How do you write SOPs that hold up to an OCM audit but are still practical for employees to follow?
So Jacob could probably speak to this, but your OCM final plans of record SOPs, and actually most other states, are essentially just a regurgitated confirmation that you're going to follow the regulations. To me, being like a retail operator of 17 years, that isn't what you give your team to train on actually how to execute. It is saying, yes, our back product won't be below 6 inches off the ground. It's not actually saying how you damage out. What are we using? Is it kitty litter? Is it a coffee grinding machine? It might not be in that specific detail. I mean, some operators might have included that on their final plans of record, but to getting as detailed as, okay, the associate manager and the general manager have the permission setting in the point of sale to be able to damage something out in metric. You don't really have to include that level of detail in your final plans of record, but when your team are working for their first day and they need to damage something out, if they don't know that exact process of who is actually able to do that in your store, you need to have that all decided before you open your doors. You can't just print out copies of your SOPs that you changed into paragraphs for your final plans of record and expect that your team that has never done this before is going to know how to do that. Or something as simple as, okay, what is your staff discount? Some stores might have 20% for cannabis, 30% for accessories. All of those items, I haven't seen anyone really put those in your final plans of record because they're not required by the OCM. However, they are required for your team to know how to operate their business and to whatever your business processes are. Does that kind of make sense?
Do you guys agree? All right, cool. All right, thank you, Brytany. We're going to move on to Munir, Curate. He's going to talk to us about tech and security. So, Munir, first question. With tech hardware costs adding up quickly, how do you figure out what's truly necessary versus a nice to have?
So, yes, tech hardware is a very heavy lift when you're building out your facility. And a lot of times that's a purchase that you make like a month or weeks before you're, at the last mile. So I always tell folks that are like Brittany's saying, take the demos of all the software companies you're going to use. You have to decide on a POS, but take a step back and envision what your dream store is and how you want it to feel, right? So do you want to be greeted with a giant TV or a screen that shows your branding and like something that makes like digitally welcomes you? So understand what it is you need. Then put that all in a bucket. Start taking all your demos for the software companies you're going to use, the POS companies, and see what their requirements are and how that adapts to what it is that you want to convey. And here's where, especially in Minnesota, where I push very hard, the security requirements are pretty heavy and they're a big, heavy lift and it costs. So it is a smart thing to do to phase out your tech. So for instance, say you were like, hey, I want 7 POS stations and, I've done this research. I'm on this corner. Like, I think the traffic's going to be there. Well, it's very easy to run cable for 7 POS stations and pay a couple extra $100 to do that and maybe buy 3 and call your tech provider later and say, hey, I'm ready. I'm generating revenue. The business is here. I need more. And then phase that out. So I guess my point here is everyone's going to try to sell you everything, and you need to start generating revenue. So phase it out, but future-proof your facility, because the last thing you want is to have this revenue coming in, but you didn't run that cable, and your walls are this pretty blue that you have to now break to run cable. Don't want to do that.
All good points. All right. What are the biggest cybersecurity risks specific to cannabis businesses that other industries don't face as acutely?
So the way I see it, and so to give you a little bit of background, our company has been doing what we do in cybersecurity for 18 plus years on the traditional side. Very HIPAA compliant, universities, food manufacturer, a lot of IP. And we all have seen on the news, like, this big box was hacked, all this data went, we've seen stores, retail stores in the traditional space, the employees come in, all their POS is locked out because there's a big hack. And for 6-7 years, I've been saying it's a matter of time before that bedroom hacker decides, hey, I want to go play in the cannabis space. And in the medical stores, we're taking in a lot of data. I mean, in any store, we're scanning IDs. There's a lot of data and important information, whatever anyone wants to do with it. So the risk is really high. And the thing that scares me is a lot of states, a lot of folks don't take that seriously because, like I said, the costs start adding up pretty high and pretty fast. And so when someone says, I'm just going to get a modem and the internet and I'm going to put everything on Wi-Fi and make it work, that's scary because it leaves you vulnerable. There are some big MSOs, multi-state stores that have been hacked already. Doesn't really make the mainstream media, but it put them in a really bad shape. So that tells me that, in my opinion, would a SMB be hacked over like a multi-state? Probably not now, but you don't want to put yourself in a vulnerable situation.
Good point. All right. How do canna businesses balance regulatory compliance with the cost of security requirements?
Yeah, the cost is heavy. And I think so. Okay, you can't go around regulations. You have to do what the regulations say as far as like. So let's talk about security, like cameras. How many cameras do you need? What areas do you need to cover? At what resolution? At what storage? Right. But here's where vetting your vendors too. There are different software companies that offer the actual recording, the platform, the MVR, the device, offer smart solutions to help you get an ROI through your business. There are different ways you can do this. And those costs are going to vary. Like someone can sell you a $180 dome camera that can, record in like HD and whatnot and do all the things versus an $800 camera. So you got to balance your cost by it's hardware again. You're buying hardware, your door access control, your alarms, like there's hardware involved and there's a monthly recurring cost that comes with that to keep you compliant. So you got to vet it out and ask yourself like, do they want to see the gray hairs on my beard or, is it looking all one color good enough?
Awesome. All right. How do you protect seed to sale tracking data, customer records, and POS systems all at once?
So the proper way to do it is you build a network, you get a firewall, you run all your security, your internet through there, you set the parameters to block it. But the most important thing that a lot of people forget about, and this is what I've learned in working in other spaces, also working in Canada in a federally legal market, there's this thing called HIPAA compliance. And HIPAA actually offers a lot of good tools. Like, for instance, your person in the front that is checking IDs, they should never walk away from the computer without locking the screen, right? So there's an education component to this that I feel we need to do a better job in teaching. Phishing, what is phishing? Like someone may have hacked your email system and is learning how Brytany talks to her accounting department who pays all these invoices and sends this invoice, and you didn't check that, oh, it says it's from Brytany, but when you click on Brytany, it has these weird numbers and stuff after it. So there is an education component to the actual build out. And when I say do things right, I would say, and I stand by, the right way to do is however secure you want to do it, but you have to start with building a secure network. And all the tech in your store will funnel through that, and it'll live on that.
All right, let's talk about what happens when a cannabis operator gets breached. What's the regulatory exposure on top of the business risk?
I mean, it depends on the level of breach. I mean, you have to report it right away. You have to report it to the OCM. And there's an investigation that is filed, and there's protocol that goes with that. So it depends if there was customer data that was taken, if there were, if you're transacting with cards somehow, where did that go? So it essentially becomes like a legal matter. And there's a full investigation on how deep did the breach go. Was it just phishing, or did a lot of actual data go with it? But there are so many measures that are supposed to be in place with data dumps and cycling to protect you from that or make it as minimal as possible when it happens.
All right, last question for you. How can operators avoid increasing unnecessary expenses during the build out phase?
So I highly recommend you have someone on your team, call them a project manager, call them your shaman, call them whatever you want, but that is watching all the moving pieces. Because if you are the owner, I mean, if you're a superhero and you're also managing that, more power to you. But if you're like in it and you're answering all the emails, taking all the demos, doing all the stuff, and somewhat just lightly touching on all the moving pieces, it's going to be a very costly mistake. Um, I won't name names, but there is a very popular brand that on my side of the world, there's a time lapse video of the walls going up, the walls coming down, the walls going up, the walls coming down during build out, because they kept forgetting about things like, I got to run cable, or I forgot to, put electrical here, or, I didn't read the compliance rules and we have to put more cameras here, because people weren't talking to each other. And that becomes a very big costly mistake, and understanding, I always encourage people, like, to draw out your dream and understand if you have a location and if you haven't met an architect yet or someone that's going to like do your floor plans, you can still sketch out your floor plans how you want it and start building off that, because you can use that to communicate. But those plans, you need to start adding things like I said, the camera, the tech, electrical. Another mistake I see is the millwork folks aren't talking to the IT folks or the POS company. So you get this beautiful marble, but there's no holes drilled in it. Or they didn't run like electrical at the bottom, or the cash register area is floating. And now there's no way you have to get a pipe coming down from the ceiling. So these are all things that need to be talked about in the beginning. And I was talking to someone earlier. Might have been you, Chris. I'm spoiled, and back in the day when we used to have all hands meetings and with everybody involved, and you kind of just threw everything out there, because there was always the least quiet, the most quiet person in the meeting or the room that raised their hand and like offered some very valuable stuff that would have thrown all this in a loop. So yeah.
All right, thank you, Munir. We're going to bring it back to the group with a few closing questions, and I'll try to leave some time for questions as well. So, back to the group. If you could change one thing about Minnesota cannabis regulation tomorrow, what would it be?
If I could change one thing with the regulation, it would be communication style. So many things are muddy and unclear, and as an operator, you're just trying to do it as compliantly as you can. And a lot of times in our experience, the lack of communication can lead to costly mistakes. I'm crazy about that. I chase them all down, but I know that it's leading to errors for people.
Probably, and I mean, every state has its challenges with this. In Canada, we still have its challenges with this, but really being able to have a course of action for the gray market, and have a plan. Clearly, right now, there's not a lot of product available for the rec market, so maybe people are going to the gray market because of availability and pricing. However, there's often so many different loopholes that the gray market is able to work around. Like I said, we've been 8 years legal in Canada, and we still have stores operational up there. New York as well. They get shut down, pop back up, slap on the wrist. So I think for regulated operators, it is challenging to compete with that, and it does become defeating at some times when cops can't do anything, regulators can't do anything. You have to file like smoke law breach or noise complaints to maybe get the stores to get visited by the cops. So I guess to summarize, I would say some form of plan of action for the gray market would be helpful for every market in the U.S. I think.
I would just say for you guys, it's not going to change. It's not going to get better. It's going to get more difficult. You are their testing ground. Be prepared for it. I'm sorry to sound like a negative guy up here, but like I'm just trying to give you the reality of the way it actually operates. You are guinea pigs. They're using you as guinea pigs to figure out their system. So keep that in the back of your mind that whatever they're giving you now is going to change. It is not the way it is permanently and forever. Colorado is still changing almost 20 years later.
All right. What advice would you give to someone thinking about entering the industry today?
Get a mentor. Honestly, like, which is why we wanted to invite our friends here. There's the truth. So, so find the bridge between your dream and what it is you want to do and what it is these folks went through and are going through. That's the biggest, most helpful thing I can say.
I would say my best advice is cannabis isn't for the faint of heart. Like, you need to have thick skin. You need to be able to adapt to change quickly. I wake up every single day and I look for what changed. And that's my biggest advice. Don't jump into this as your first business. Don't jump into this as thinking I'm going to open it and they'll come and I'll get rich. That is not how this industry works. And just thinking that way is just going to bring you pain. So
You already know what I'm going to say.
All right, we're going to close with a little future looking ahead. So, what does the Minnesota cannabis industry look like in 5 years? Who is still standing?
Almost everybody in the room won't be here. This won't exist in 5 years, and the market will be stabilized. You'll be looking at anywhere from $800 to $1,200 pounds produced. You will have gone through hundreds of staff members, and the industry will still be learning how to regulate itself. That is the true way it is. So when you're hearing what everybody's saying up here, watch your money, watch your experience, watch your time, watch everybody. Everybody wants in your pocket. Everybody you're talking to wants in your pocket. They want to sell you something. So just be cautious of who you get involved with. Really check people out. Look everybody's name up. When you get someone, do a search on them. Reach out. Find people. If you can't verify somebody, they can't give you good information.
I hit my 100th dispensary that I opened at the top of this year, and I could confidently say every market follows this similar pattern. These conferences become more for the brands to sell to the retailers, so it becomes more consumption focused, brand focused, which is fun. There'll be a lot of consumer events as well. and consolidation happens at the end of the day, regardless of how it is structured to, prohibit monopolization. Every single market, it will be like a couple groups standing at the end, and consolidation will happen. So always kind of envision that in your future. Prep yourself to be sold if that is part of your vision, and be conservative with cost, because there is ups and downs. Margins will drop significantly as well in the next probably even like 6 to 8 months. So just being mindful of that.
I would say I completely agree that this market will be completely different in 5 years. My advice for that is protect your margin. That's what's going to keep your doors open. Don't get into pissing matches with people about, I'm 50 cents cheaper, I want to be $1 cheaper. That margin is what keeps you open. The good early times are what will protect you from price compression. You're not going to outrun price compression. It's going to happen. It's not a maybe. So protect yourself early against those times.
To add to Jacob, to protect your people, if you're investing in them by hiring them, you want to continue to invest in them, because they're going to learn your business probably as well as your business if they're there every day or every other day, and they're going to learn your clientele. So if you're not protecting them and they're just going to leave and go to another dispensary, think about all the training you have to do again to bring up the new person, to that level. And we've seen this happen in so many markets or stores growing really fast, where that warm kind of welcoming, someone walking in goes away because they just need like 4 more bud tenders and becomes really transactional. So just, I'm a people person. We had this conversation yesterday about investing in your team. So yeah.
I have one more. Don't rush to expand unless you are 110% sure it is a good business move. It is okay to have one operation that is profitable, and you learn and you run a tight ship. Ego, I'm going to be honest, gets the best of us in this industry. The biggest facility, the most amount of dispensaries, the best locations, the biggest leases. I hear it all the time. I promise you, actually, I'm going to scrap everything I said. This is the best piece of advice. Do not expand unless you are 110% sure that second location is going to be as profitable or more profitable than your first location, because it is super easy to go from having, a really successful business to bankrupting your entire business, because the market is so volatile and things change like the drop of a dime. So, the first year to 2 years, your sales are going to be at a certain level. And then once competition comes in and everything starts plateauing, you'll probably decrease budget for 40% at least. So that is my biggest piece of advice, is drop your ego, leave it at the door. One solid location is really, really great in this industry. If you look at other markets, a lot of people can't say that and have left because of ego and wanting to expand.
All right, that wraps up our panel. But if you guys have any questions, we do have time for some questions. Or are our panelists just really awesome and gave you all the information that you needed? Well, then let's give them a round of applause for all that
Thank you.
awesome knowledge that they dropped on you.